Kang To-woo rubbed his tired eyes as he checked the navigation panel. The cargo ship drifted smoothly through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, autopilot keeping them on the safest path. The gentle hum of the engines was the only sound in the cockpit. He had been making this same run for 3 years now. Medical supplies to the outer colonies, machine parts on the return journey. Just another boring trip, he muttered to himself, stretching his arms above his head. The ship, named Serenity Dawn, wasn't much to look at. It was an older model transport vessel with patches of mismatched metal on its hull. But it was reliable, and it was all his. After 10 years of working for others, saving every credit, he had finally bought it outright last year. To-woo rose from his chair and headed toward the small galley. A hot cup of synthetic coffee would help him stay alert during the long journey. As he passed by the cargo hold entrance, he paused. A faint sound caught his attention. Something like scratching or tapping. "That's strange," he said, frowning. The cargo manifest listed only sealed containers of medical equipment and supplies. Nothing that should make noise. He hesitated, then changed direction. Better to check now than worry about it for the next 12 hours. The cargo hold doors slid open with a soft hiss. The large space was dimly lit and filled with neatly stacked containers secured with magnetic locks to prevent shifting during flight. To-woo walked slowly between the rows, listening carefully. There it was again, a soft thumping sound coming from the far corner. He approached cautiously, one hand resting on the stunner at his hip. Smugglers sometimes hid contraband on legitimate transport ships, and he had no intention of being caught with illegal goods. Near the back wall, he noticed something odd. A section of paneling didn't quite match the rest of the wall. The difference was subtle. Anyone not familiar with ships of this model would have missed it. To-woo ran his fingers along the seam until he found a small indentation. He pressed it, and the false panel slid open with a quiet click. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. Huddled in the small hidden compartment was an alien female. She looked young, though it was hard to tell with alien species. Her skin was a pale blue color, almost translucent, showing dark veins underneath. She was dangerously thin, her limbs like twigs, her face gaunt. Her eyes, large and completely black, stared at him with unmistakable terror. Most striking was the heavy metal collar around her neck. It was about 2 inches thick, with small blinking lights and what looked like a control panel on one side. To-woo had seen similar devices before in news reports about slave trafficking in the outer systems. "A Lyridian," he whispered, recognizing her species from the delicate gill-like structures along her neck and the faint luminescent patterns running along her arms. Lyridians were rare in this part of space. Their home system was on the other side of the galaxy. The alien girl pressed herself further into the compartment, as far from him as possible. Her chest rose and fell rapidly with fear. "Hey there," To-woo said softly, raising his empty hands to show he wasn't holding a weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't respond, but her eyes darted to the open panel and back to his face, as if calculating whether she could escape past him. "You're safe now," he continued, keeping his voice gentle. "I didn't know you were here. This is my ship." To-woo's mind raced. Someone had hidden this girl on his ship without his knowledge. That meant someone was expecting to collect her at the destination, the medical research facility on Europa Station. The implications were disturbing. Who had placed her here? And what would happen if he arrived without her? The alien girl made a soft, whimpering sound, her hand rising to touch the collar around her neck. The movement was tentative, as if the collar might hurt her for touching it. "That looks uncomfortable," To-woo said, pointing to the collar. "May I help you remove it?" Her black eyes widened, and for the first time, a hint of something other than fear appeared in them. A flicker of hope, perhaps. To-woo slowly reached for the multi-tool he kept in his pocket. "I'm just getting a tool to help," he explained, moving with deliberate care. "I won't hurt you." The alien watched his every movement. As he pulled out the multi-tool, Her body tensed. "It's okay," he soothed. "Look, it's just for opening things." He demonstrated by unfolding various attachments: a small cutting blade, a screwdriver, a wire clipper. The alien's gaze fixed on the tool, her head tilting slightly in what might have been understanding. Taiwu took a small step forward. "I'm going to come closer now, okay? Just to look at that collar." She didn't move away, which he took as permission. Kneeling beside the compartment, he examined the collar more carefully. It was sophisticated technology, far more advanced than anything he should be carrying to an outer colony. The small control panel had unfamiliar symbols and a keypad that probably required a code. "This might take a few minutes," he murmured, selecting a scanner attachment on his multi-tool. "But I think I can figure it out." The alien remained completely still as he worked, her eyes never leaving his hands. Taiwu carefully scanned the collar's electronic components, trying to understand its locking mechanism. After several tense minutes of probing and scanning, he identified what appeared to be the power source. "I think I've got it," he said. "This might feel strange, but it should deactivate the system." Using the precision cutter on his multi-tool, he carefully severed what he believed was the primary power circuit. The lights on the collar blinked rapidly, then went dark. A soft click followed, and the collar's locking mechanism released. The alien girl's eyes widened in disbelief. Her trembling fingers touched the now loosened collar. "Here, let me help you with that," Taiwu offered, reaching slowly toward her neck. She flinched slightly but allowed him to touch the collar. With gentle care, he removed it completely from her neck, revealing raw, chafed skin underneath where the metal had rubbed against her delicate blue flesh. The moment the collar came completely free, a change came over the alien girl. Her luminescent markings flickered brightly for a moment, then dimmed. Her black eyes rolled back, and she collapsed forward, falling into Taiwu's arms. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out, alarmed. But she was unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. The strain of her captivity and the sudden freedom appeared to have overwhelmed her. Carefully lifting her feather-light body, Taiwu was shocked at how little she weighed. He could feel her bones through her thin garment. How long had she been hidden in that compartment? How long had she been enslaved? "You're safe now," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. "I promise." As he carried her from the cargo hold toward the crew quarters, Taiwu knew his simple delivery run had just become something far more complicated and dangerous. For 3 days, Taiwu cared for the alien girl in his small med bay. At first, she slept almost constantly, her body recovering from what must have been months of mistreatment. He treated the raw sores on her neck, set up nutrient drips suited to her species, and monitored her vital signs based on the limited Lyridian medical information in his ship's database. When she finally woke fully on the second day, her black eyes had followed his every movement with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Communication was difficult, but she seemed to understand basic gestures. By the end of that day, she'd managed to convey that her name, or at least something she responded to, was Neri. By the 3rd day, Neri was strong enough to sit up and eat solid food. She had picked up several common language words and used them along with hand signals to communicate simple needs and thoughts. Taiwu had adjusted their course to avoid the main shipping lanes, taking a longer route to Europa Station, where he hoped to find help from an old friend who worked with refugee services. Now, as they approached the station's orbit, Taiwu sat in the pilot's seat reviewing their options. Neri perched on the co-pilot's chair beside him, her legs tucked under her, watching the screens with apparent understanding. "We dock soon," Taiwu explained simply, pointing to the approaching station on the view screen. "My friend will help you." Neri nodded, though her 6-fingered hands twisted nervously in her lap. The luminescent patterns along her arms glowed a dull yellow, something Taiwu had come to recognize as a sign of anxiety. The communication panel beeped suddenly, making Nari jump. A message was coming through from the station. Taiwu accepted the transmission, expecting the usual docking instructions. Instead, A cold voice filled the cockpit. "Cargo vessel Serenity Dawn. We have been notified of a discrepancy in your manifest. Hold position for inspection." Tai Wu frowned. There was no reason for any inspection. His paperwork was in order. Before he could respond, another message came through on a different frequency. This one wasn't from station control. "We know you have our property, pilot." The message crackled through the comms. "Deliver all cargo or face consequences." The voice was distorted, but the threat was clear. Tai Wu glanced at Nari and saw pure terror spread across her features. She understood. Her luminescent markings had changed from yellow to a deep red, pulsing rapidly. On the view screen, Tai Wu noticed something alarming. 2 small security vessels had detached from the station and were moving toward them. Their trajectory was too direct, too purposeful. This wasn't a routine inspection. "They found us," he said quietly. "Be bad people," Nari whispered, one of her first clear phrases in common language. She pointed at the screen, her hand trembling. "Take Nari back." Hurt Nari. Tai Wu's mind raced. The station was still 5 minutes away at their current speed. The security vessels would intercept them in 3. His cargo ship wasn't built for speed or combat. It was a transporter, designed for efficiency and capacity, not escape. He looked at Nari, seeing the fear in her eyes. 3 days ago, she'd been a half-dead slave in a hidden compartment. Now she was a person with a name, who liked sweet foods and had figured out how to use the shower controls on her own. He couldn't hand her back to whoever had treated her so cruelly. "Hang on," Tai Wu whispered, engaging the emergency thrusters. The ship lurched sideways, alarms blaring as they veered away from the docking path. Nari gripped her seat as the sudden movement nearly threw her to the floor. The station's controller's voice came through immediately. "Serenity Dawn, return to approach vector immediately. This is a violation of station protocol." Tai Wu ignored the message, pushing the thrusters to maximum. As he banked the ship away from the station, the security vessels adjusted their course, accelerating in pursuit. "Unauthorized course deviation," a new voice announced over the comms. "Vessel will be disabled if compliance is not immediate." As if to emphasize the point, a warning shot from one of the security vessels streaked past their starboard side. The next one wouldn't miss. "They're going to fire again," Tai Wu said, more to himself than to Nari as he tried to plot a new course. "The rear shields won't hold against." A blast of energy struck the ship's rear quarter. The impact rocked the entire vessel, throwing Tai Wu forward against his restraints. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as systems began to fail. "Stabilizer hit," Tai Wu shouted, fighting with the controls as the ship began to spin. "We're losing control." The artificial gravity fluctuated as the ship tumbled through space. Loose items flew around the cockpit. A toolkit struck the wall beside Nari's head, but she didn't flinch. Instead, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "Here." Nari suddenly unbuckled her restraints and moved to the engineering panel on the sidewall. Her 6-fingered hands flew across the controls with surprising skill. The ship continued to spin, but somehow she kept her balance, her body swaying with the motion as she worked. Tai Wu watched in amazement as she accessed systems he didn't even know could be modified. Her fingers danced across the panel with the expertise of someone who had spent years working with similar technology. "What are you?" he began, but stopped as the ship suddenly steadied. The spinning slowed, then stopped completely. The warning lights on the main console dimmed as power rerouted through auxiliary systems. "Fixed," Nari said simply, a hint of pride in her voice. "Go now." Not questioning this unexpected turn of events, Tai Wu engaged the main engines. The ship responded smoothly despite the damage, accelerating away from the station and the pursuing vessels. "They're still coming," he warned, checking the rear scanners. The security ships were faster, but the head start might give them enough time to reach the nearby asteroid field where they could hide. Nari returned to the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the pursuing vessels. The patterns on her arms now glowed a steady blue. Determination, perhaps. How did you know how to do that? Ta Wu asked as he navigated toward the asteroid field. Nary fixed ships. Before, she touched her neck where the collar had been. Before bad people take Nary. For the next 20 minutes, they flew in tense silence. Ta Wu weaved through the outer edges of the asteroid field, using the larger rocks as cover. Eventually, the pursuing ships fell back, unwilling to risk damage in the dense field. Only when they were safely hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid did Ta Wu relax his grip on the controls. They had escaped, but to where? The ship was damaged. Their planned refuge was now hostile territory, and they had limited supplies. "Thank you," he said to Nary. "You saved us." She nodded once, then rose from her seat. As Ta Wu began checking damage reports, he noticed something peculiar. Nary moved around the cockpit, examining various systems and occasionally adjusting settings, but she never went more than 3 steps away from him. If he shifted position, she adjusted her own, maintaining that exact distance. At one point, he deliberately walked to the far side of the cockpit. Nary immediately followed, keeping the same careful distance. It wasn't fear. Her markings were calm now. It was something else, something almost instinctual. "Are you okay?" he asked, pointing to her and then making a thumbs-up question. "Nary okay with Ta Wu," she replied simply. "Ta Wu safe." As they drifted in the shadow of the asteroid, plotting their next move, Ta Wu realized their situation had just become far more complicated. They were fugitives now, with powerful enemies searching for them. And somehow, in just 3 days, this alien girl had formed an attachment to him that went beyond simple gratitude. The ship hummed quietly around them as Ta Wu began plotting a course to the outer colonies, where perhaps they could find help and answers. After 3 tense days hiding in the asteroid belt, making emergency repairs and carefully monitoring communication channels, Ta Wu had decided their best option was the Harmony Station. Unlike Europa, which was controlled by the major corporations, Harmony was an independent outpost known for its neutrality and discretion. It was smaller, located on the edge of the Jupiter sector, and home to various beings who preferred to avoid official attention. Ta Wu had a contact there, Dr. Han Ji-Soo, who ran a refugee aid center. They had met years ago when Ta Wu had helped transport medical supplies during a viral outbreak on one of the outer moons. If anyone could help Nary, it would be Dr. Han. The approach to Harmony Station was nerve-wracking. Ta Wu watched the scanners constantly, ready to flee at the first sign of pursuit. Nary sat beside him, her luminescent markings glowing a steady pale green, a color he had come to associate with calm focus. Over the past days, her common language had improved dramatically. She was clearly intelligent and picked up vocabulary quickly. "Big station?" she asked, pointing at the approaching structure on the view screen. "Smaller than Europa," Ta Wu explained, "but safer. My friend is there. She helps people like you." Nary's markings flickered briefly to yellow. People like Nary. People who escaped bad situations. People who need help. The station grew larger on their screens, a collection of connected modules clustered around a central hub, with various ships docked along extended arms. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. Harmony Station control to approaching vessel, came a bored voice over the comms. "Identify yourself and state your business." "This is cargo ship Serenity Dawn," Ta Wu responded, requesting emergency docking for repairs and medical assistance. There was a pause before the controller responded. "Serenity Dawn, we show an alert on your vessel from Europa authorities. Care to explain?" Ta Wu had prepared for this. "We experienced a navigation system failure during approach to Europa Station. Had to engage emergency protocols to avoid collision. Damaged our ship in the process." Another pause. "Medical emergency?" "Yes," Ta Wu said. "I have a passenger requiring specialized care." "Understood. Proceed to docking Arm 3, Bay 7. Medical team will meet you there." Tohu released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The first hurdle was cleared. Now they just needed to reach Dr. Han before anyone asked too many questions. The docking went smoothly. As promised, a medical team waited as they exited the airlock. Nari stayed close to Tawu, never more than those saying 3 steps away, her 6-fingered hand occasionally brushing his arm, as if to reassure herself of his presence. "I need to speak with Dr. Han Jisoo," Tawu told the lead medical officer, a tall woman with cybernetic enhancements visible along her temples. "It's important." The woman scanned Nari with a handheld device, her expression changing slightly as she registered the alien species. "Follow me," she said simply. They were led through the station's corridors, drawing curious glances from passersby. Lyridians were rare in this system, and Nari's obvious attachment to Tawu, the way she mirrored his movements, staying precisely the same distance from him at all times, made them stand out even more. The refugee center occupied an entire section of the station's lower level. It was busier than Taewu remembered, with beings from various systems moving about, some clearly recent arrivals based on their bewildered expressions and meager possessions. Dr. Han met them in a small private medical bay. She hadn't changed much since Tawu had last seen her, still short, still energetic, with a streak of silver now running through her dark hair. "Kang Tawu," she said warmly, though her eyes quickly moved to Nari with professional assessment. "It's been a while. And who do we have here?" "This is Nari," Tawu explained. "I found her hidden in a secret compartment on my ship. She was wearing a control collar." Dr. Han's expression darkened. "Smugglers," she said, the word like a curse. "May I examine her?" "With her permission, of course." Tawu translated the request simply for Nari, who nodded hesitantly. "Tawu stay?" she asked. "Of course," he assured her. The examination was thorough but gentle. Dr. Han spoke softly to Nari throughout, explaining what she was doing even though she wasn't sure how much the Lyridian understood. Nari's vitals were recorded, samples taken, and various scans performed. Throughout it all, her eyes repeatedly found Tawu, as if making sure he was still there. When the examination was complete, Dr. Han asked to speak with Tawu privately. Nari immediately tensed. "Just on the other side of that window," Tawu explained, pointing to the observation area adjacent to the examination room. "You can see me the whole time." Nari reluctantly agreed, though she positioned herself on the examination table with a clear view of the window, her posture rigid with anxiety. In the observation room, Dr. Han pulled up the scan results on a screen. "She's recovering well from the physical neglect," she began. "Malnutrition, minor infections from the collar wounds, nothing we can't treat easily. But there's something you should know about Lyridians." She pulled up an image of Nari's brain scan, pointing to specific areas lit up in bright colors. "Her species forms intense bonds with their rescuers," explained Dr. Han. "It's biological, a survival mechanism from their homeworld. Lyridians evolved on a planet with extreme environmental dangers and powerful predators. When one saves another from death, a neurochemical process begins that creates a powerful attachment." Tawu glanced through the window at Nari, who was watching him intently. "Is that why she won't go more than 3 steps from me?" Dr. Han nodded. "Precisely. The exact distance varies, but there's always a proximity limit during the initial bonding period. It's actually quite fascinating from a xenobiological perspective." "How long does this last?" "It varies. Weeks, sometimes months. Eventually, it fades to a more normal level of attachment." She hesitated. However, given her traumatic experiences, the process might be more intense and prolonged. Tawu considered this information. It explained much about Nari's behavior over the past days. Her constant positioning near him, her anxiety when he moved away, her quick adaptation to his routines. "What should I do?" he asked. "We have rehabilitation facilities for former slaves," Dr. Han continued. "She'll receive proper care, therapy, education in common language, and eventually, we can help her find a community of other Liridians or arrange repatriation if. No. The shout came from the examination room. Somehow, despite the soundproofing and language barrier, Neri had understood what was being discussed. Before either of them could react, she had leaped from the table and rushed through the door, moving with surprising speed to Ta Wu's side. She gripped his arm with startling strength, her markings flashing deep red. "No leave, Ta Wu," she said firmly, though her voice trembled. "Nari, stay. Nari, stay." Dr. Han observed the interaction with professional interest. "The bond appears quite strong already," she noted. "Forcing separation now could cause serious psychological trauma. The stress response alone could trigger a cascade of negative physical effects." Ta Wu felt Neri's grip on his arm, saw the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just the biological bond. She had been through unimaginable trauma, ripped from her home, collared, treated as property. And now he was the only stable element in her universe. "How would this work?" he asked slowly. "I have a ship to run, deliveries to make." Dr. Han tapped her screen, considering options. "We could provide educational materials suitable for her species. She seems quite intelligent and adaptable. With time and distance, the bond will naturally weaken to manageable levels. And until then," Dr. Han sighed, her expression sympathetic. "Until then, I'm afraid you have a companion." Ta Wu looked down at Neri, whose grip had loosened slightly but remained firm. Her markings had shifted from alarmed red to an anxious yellow-orange. She was looking up at him, her dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. "Ta Wu, want Nari go?" she asked quietly, clearly struggling to form the question correctly. The question struck him unexpectedly. Did he want her to go? The past few days had been chaotic, dangerous, and complicated because of her presence. His simple life as a cargo hauler had been upended entirely. He should be eager to return to normalcy. Yet there was something about Neri. Her quick mind, her surprising skills with ship systems, her determination to survive despite everything she'd endured. And the way she had saved them both when the ship was damaged, showing expertise he wouldn't have guessed she possessed. Ta Wu nodded reluctantly. "She stays with me," he told Dr. Han. Then to Nari, he added, "You stay. For now." The transformation in Nari's demeanor was immediate. Her markings shifted to a bright blue, and her posture relaxed. She released his arm but remained within her comfortable 3-step radius. "You understand this makes things more complicated," Dr. Han warned. "There are people looking for her. Europa Station has flagged your ship." "I know," Ta Wu said, "but we'll figure it out." As they left the medical bay with supplies and medicine provided by Dr. Han, Ta Wu felt the weight of his decision. He had just committed to protecting an alien fugitive with an unbreakable attachment to him, against unknown enemies with unknown resources. But watching Nari walk beside him, her steps matching his, her markings glowing a peaceful blue, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. 2 weeks had passed since their visit to Harmony Station. The Serenity Dawn was running smoothly again after repairs, and Ta Wu had taken on small delivery jobs between the outer moons to earn credits while staying away from major shipping lanes. Each day brought small changes in his relationship with Neri. Her common language improved rapidly, and the strict 3-step distance she maintained had gradually extended to about 5 steps. Progress, according to Dr. Han's information. Ta Wu was in the cockpit, checking their course to a mining colony on Callisto, when his secure communication channel beeped. The encrypted signal indicated it was from Lee Hyun-ki, an old friend who worked in station security and occasionally passed along useful information. "Accept transmission," Ta Wu commanded, and the screen lit up with Hyun-ki's face. "You look terrible," Ta Wu said, noting his friend's tired eyes and the stubble on his usually clean-shaven face. "Been working double shifts," Hyun-ki replied. "But that's not why I'm calling. You're in trouble, Ta Wu." "What kind of trouble?" Hyum-ki glanced over his shoulder before continuing in a lowered voice. There's a bounty out for your ship, and for a Lyridian female. They're offering 50,000 credits for her return. Ta-Wu felt his stomach tighten. Who's offering it? That's the interesting part. The bounty comes through standard channels, but I traced it back to Helios Corporation, the medical research company. Ta-Wu frowned. What would they want with? Not just medical research, Hyum-ki interrupted. They have a division that develops emotional enhancement technology. Apparently, Lyridians have empathic abilities valuable to certain industries. What industries? Ta-Wu asked, though he dreaded the answer. Entertainment, luxury services, military applications. Hyum-ki's expression was grim. Anything where controlling or manipulating emotions would be profitable. Ta-Wu glanced toward the ship's small common area, where Neri was studying star charts on a tablet. Dr. Han had provided educational materials to help her learn, and she absorbed information with remarkable speed. Her luminescent markings glowed a steady blue as she focused on the screen, occasionally making notes with her six-fingered hand. How many people are looking for us? Ta-Wu asked, turning back to the screen. Every bounty hunter and mercenary crew in the outer system by now. 50,000 credits is serious money. Hyum-ki leaned closer to the camera. You need to disappear, Ta-Wu. Maybe head to the Saturn colonies, or further. After ending the transmission, Ta-Wu sat quietly, considering their options. Their current course would take them to Callisto for a routine delivery. Then they planned to head back toward Harmony Station for another check-in with Dr. Han. But if Hyum-ki was right, that route was now too predictable. Problem. Ta-Wu looked up to find Neri standing in the cockpit doorway. Her common language had advanced to simple sentences, though her grammar was still developing. Yes, Ta-Wu admitted. He had learned that honesty worked best with Neri. Bad people looking for you. For us. Neri's markings shifted to a yellow-orange of concern, but her expression remained calm. We go different place. Yes. We need supplies first. Then we go far away. She nodded, accepting this change with the adaptability she had shown since joining him. I helped prepare ship. That evening, they docked at a small refueling outpost on the edge of the Jupiter system. The facility was little more than a collection of interconnected modules orbiting a small moon, serving the mining vessels and independent traders that passed through. It was the kind of place where questions weren't asked as long as credit chips were good. Stay on the ship, Ta-Wu told Neri as he prepared to head to the supply depot. Lock the doors. Open only for me. Neri's markings flickered to a worried yellow. Too far, she said. The 5-step distance she could now manage wouldn't extend to the station. I'll be quick, Ta-Wu promised. The ship is safe. He could see her struggling with the biological imperative to stay close and her rational understanding of the situation. Finally, she nodded. Quick, she agreed. Nary wait. The outpost was dimly lit and sparsely populated. Ta-Wu moved efficiently, gathering the supplies they would need for an extended journey. Protein packs, water purification filters, spare parts for critical systems. He paid in untraceable credit chips, avoiding conversation and eye contact. At the fuel depot, he arranged for a full tank of reactor fuel, enough to take them well beyond Jupiter's orbit. As the automated system began the refueling process, Ta-Wu moved to the parts section to find a replacement coupling for the ship's water recycler. He was examining the part when he sensed movement behind him. Turning, he found himself facing 3 figures, 2 humans and a heavily cybernetically enhanced Martian. All 3 wore the mismatched armor typical of mercenary crews, with weapons visible at their hips. Kang Ta-Wu, the lead human asked, a tall woman with a scar running down one side of her face. Ta-Wu's hand moved slowly toward the stunner concealed under his jacket. Who's asking? Someone who knows what you're carrying, the woman replied. Her companion spread out slightly, blocking the exit routes. Or should I say who you're carrying? I don't know what you're talking about. Ta-Wu said, eyes darting around for any advantage or escape. The woman smiled without warmth. 50,000 credits says you do. Now we can do this easily. You tell us where the Lyridian is. We give you 10% for your trouble. Everyone walks away happy. Or, her hand moved to the weapon at her hip. Tai Wu tensed, ready to draw his own stunner, calculating his chances against 3 armed mercenaries in a confined space. They weren't good. Suddenly, the lights in the depot flickered. All 4 of them glanced up instinctively. Then it hit, a wave of emotion so powerful it felt physical. Pure, primal fear washed over Tai Wu, making his heart race and his breath catch. It was like being plunged into icy water, every survival instinct screaming danger. But somehow, Tai Wu understood it wasn't his fear. It was projected, directed. The mercenaries froze, their faces contorted in confusion and terror. The Martian made a choking sound, his cybernetic implants sparking slightly as they malfunctioned under the emotional assault. Standing in the doorway was Neri. Her entire body glowed with intense red light, the luminescent patterns on her arms and face blazing like fire. Her black eyes were fixed on the mercenaries, her 6-fingered hands extended toward them. Tai Wu recovered first, drawing his stunner and firing in rapid succession. The mercenaries, still paralyzed by the projected fear, dropped one by one. "Run," he shouted to Nari, grabbing her arm as he dashed past. They sprinted through the station corridors, Nari keeping pace easily despite her smaller size. Behind them, alarms began to sound. "Ship left open," Neri gasped as they ran. "Sorry. Felt danger. Felt fear. Your fear." They reached the docking bay just as station security appeared at the far end of the corridor. The refueling process had completed automatically, and the Serenity Dawn was ready for departure. "Get inside," Tai Wu commanded, punching the emergency release code into the airlock panel. Once inside, Tai Wu raced to the cockpit, Nari right behind him. His hands flew over the controls, initiating the emergency launch sequence. Warning messages flashed on the screen. The rapid detachment would damage the docking clamps, and the station was denying departure clearance. "Hold on," he warned as he overrode the safety protocols. The ship lurched violently as it tore free from the docking arm. Alarms blared as they accelerated away from the station, but no pursuit ships launched immediately. The small outpost likely didn't have the resources for a chase. Only when they were safely in open space, on a course away from any major travel routes, did Tai Wu allow himself to breathe normally. He turned to Nari, who sat in the co-pilot's chair. Her glow now faded to a dim blue. "You saved my life," he said simply. "Thank you. But how did you do that? And how did you know I was in danger?" Neri looked exhausted. Her slender shoulders slumped. "My people feel deeply, can share feelings. This why slavers want us." "You projected your fear onto them," Tai Wu said, understanding dawning. "Not my fear," Nari corrected. "Their fear. I find it. Make it bigger. Make it." She searched for the word. "Overwhelming." "And you felt that I was afraid?" From the ship. Nari nodded, touching her chest. "Bond. I feel when you feel strong things. Knew you needed help." Tai Wu leaned back in his chair, processing this new information. No wonder Helios Corporation wanted Lyridians. The ability to manipulate emotions could be weaponized or used to enhance entertainment or to control crowds. In the wrong hands, such power could be terrifying. "That's why you can't go back," he said softly. "They don't see you as a person. They see you as a tool." "Yes." Nari's gaze was steady despite her exhaustion. "But Tai Wu sees Nari. Tai Wu sees person." In that moment, Tai Wu understood that this strange alien with her biological bond was more than just a responsibility or a temporary companion. She was a person with remarkable abilities and courage, who had risked herself to save him. "We'll go far away," he promised. "Somewhere they won't find us." As the Serenity Dawn accelerated toward the outer planets, leaving Jupiter's orbit behind, Ta-Wu began to plot a course to the most remote colonies in the system, places where questions weren't asked, where different species lived together, where perhaps they could find peace, at least for a while. 6 months had passed since their narrow escape from the refueling outpost. 6 months of careful navigation through the outer reaches of the solar system, taking odd jobs on remote moons and stations where news traveled slowly and strangers weren't unusual. 6 months of constantly looking over their shoulders, changing ship identification codes, and sleeping in shifts. But they had survived. More than that, they had begun to thrive in their own way. The Serenity Dawn hummed softly as it approached Ganymede, its newly painted hull now a deep green instead of its original gray. The ship had undergone many modifications during their time on the run, some for practical purposes, others to make it less recognizable to bounty hunters. In the cockpit, Ta-Wu guided the ship toward their destination, a small agricultural colony on Ganymede's southern hemisphere. The dome-covered settlement wasn't on most star charts and had no official designation in the planetary registry. It existed in the shadows of bureaucracy, home to those who preferred to remain overlooked. Beside him, Nari monitored the approach systems with practiced ease. Her common language was now nearly perfect, with only occasional unusual phrasings that betrayed her alien origin. The luminescent patterns on her blue skin glowed a calm green as she worked. "Their security is minimal," she reported, scanning the settlement. "Just basic perimeter alerts. No weapons systems detected." "They're not expecting trouble," Ta-Wu replied. "According to Min, this place has special protection." Min was their contact in the Earth Alliance Intelligence Division, a data analyst who had become an unexpected ally 3 months earlier when they had helped expose a major slave trafficking operation. The information Nari had provided about her captors had led to multiple arrests and the liberation of dozens of enslaved beings from various species. In return, Min had shared a closely guarded secret. A small community of Lyridian refugees had established themselves on Ganymede, under the unofficial protection of sympathetic alliance officers. "What if they don't welcome us?" Nari asked, her markings flickering briefly to yellow, a sign of anxiety that Ta-Wu had learned to recognize. "They will," he assured her, though his own stomach tightened with uncertainty. Min said they'd been helping other Lyridians find their way here whenever possible. The settlement came into view on their screens, a collection of interconnected domes covering approximately 10 square kilometers, with agricultural fields visible under transparent sections. It was larger than Ta-Wu had expected, clearly established for years rather than a temporary refuge. A simple communication came through. "Approaching vessel, identify yourself and state your purpose." "This is the Serenity Dawn," Ta-Wu responded. "We were directed here by Alliance Officer Min regarding a Lyridian passenger." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Proceed to landing pad 3. An escort will meet you." As they descended toward the designated area, Nari moved closer to Ta-Wu, her hand briefly touching his arm. Over the months, the strict proximity requirement of her biological bond had gradually relaxed. She could now move freely throughout the ship without distress, though she still preferred to stay near him by choice. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "thank you for everything." Ta-Wu nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The possibility of saying goodbye weighed heavily on him. The landing was smooth. Through the viewport, they could see several figures waiting at the edge of the pad. Most were wearing the practical clothing of colony workers, but what caught their attention was the unmistakable blue skin and luminescent markings of 3 Lyridians standing among them. "Your people," Ta-Wu said gently as they prepared to disembark. "You can be with them now." Nari stood at the viewport, watching as the blue-skinned figures approached cautiously. Her luminescent markings brightened considerably, a sign of emotional response among her kind. The patterns shifted through colors rapidly: yellow, blue, green, purple, emotions too complex and alien for Ta-Wu to fully interpret. They were met at the airlock by a mixed group, 2 human colony representatives and the 3 Lyridians. One of the Lyridians was clearly elderly, his blue skin faded to a pale azure, the luminescent patterns on his arms dimmer, but more intricate than Nari's. "Welcome to New Haven," one of the humans greeted them. "I'm Director Park. Min informed us of your situation." The elderly Lyridian stepped forward, his black eyes fixed on Neri. His 6-fingered hands moved in a complex gesture that Neri immediately returned, her markings pulsing in rhythm with his. "I am Meyer," he said in perfect common language. "Elder of our small community. We are 14 now. With you, 15. Neri bowed her head slightly. "I am Neri. I was taken from the Eastern Islands during the 3rd harvest season." "We know of the raids," Meyer said sadly. "Many were lost. It brings joy to find another survivor." They were shown around the settlement, which turned out to be more sophisticated than it appeared from above. The Lyridians had established their own section within one of the larger domes, adapting the environment to better match their homeworld's conditions. Higher humidity, specialized lighting that complemented their bioluminescence, and plants imported from their native planet created a small pocket of their distant home. Throughout the tour, Taugu observed Nari carefully. Her markings remained bright and active as she interacted with her people, asking questions, learning about their life here. She seemed genuinely happy to be among them, to hear her native language spoken around her, to see cultural practices she had been separated from for so long. That evening, they were invited to a small gathering in the Lyridian section. Food was shared, some human dishes, some Lyridian delicacies that Taugu found strangely sweet and textured like nothing he had ever tasted. Music played on unfamiliar instruments filled the air, and the Lyridians' markings glowed in synchronized patterns as they moved in what appeared to be a traditional dance. After the meal, Meyer asked to speak with them privately. In a small room filled with plants and softly glowing stones, the elder Lyridian explained more about their situation. "We have been here 3 Earth years," he said. "The humans of this colony needed our agricultural knowledge. We needed safety, a fair exchange." "And the Earth Alliance?" Taugu asked. "They protect you." "Certain officers, yes. Not officially." Meyer's hands moved in an expressive gesture. "Politics is complicated everywhere, it seems." He turned his attention to Neri. "You have formed a rescue bond with this human." It wasn't a question, but Neri nodded. "Yes. He freed me from captivity." "The bond weakens with time. The choice remains." "Always choice," Meyer said, his voice gentle. "This is the way of our people. What begins in biological necessity should end in conscious decision." Taugu felt a weight in his chest. How much longer will the bond last? Meyer studied him with ancient eyes. "For most, the biological imperative fades after one full cycle, what humans call a year. The proximity requirements lessen gradually until they are gone entirely." He tilted his head. "But the emotional connection that grows alongside it, that is not bound by biology. That is built by shared experience, trust, and care." Later that night, as Taugu prepared for sleep in the guest quarters they had been assigned, he found himself mentally preparing for goodbye. It made sense for Nari to stay here, among her own kind, safe from those who would exploit her abilities. She could build a new life, reconnect with her culture, perhaps even find a way to contact her family on her distant homeworld. It was the right thing. The logical conclusion to their unexpected journey together. Yet the thought of returning to the Serenity Dawn alone left him feeling hollow. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. When he opened the door, Nari stood there, her few possessions packed in the small bag Dr. Han had given her months ago. "May I enter?" she asked formally. Confused, Taugu stepped aside. "Of course, but I thought you would be staying with the others tonight." Nari placed her bag on the floor and turned to face him, her markings glowing a steady, determined blue. "I have spoken with Elder Meyer and the others," she said. "They have offered me a place here." "That's good," Ta-Wu said, forcing a smile. You'll be safe here, and with your own people. Neri stepped closer, studying his face with her large, dark eyes. The biological bond has weakened as Meyer said it would. I can stay here without pain or distress. She paused. But I don't want to. Ta-Wu stared at her, not sure he understood. I stay, she said simply, not because of bond, because of choice. The weight in Ta-Wu's chest suddenly lifted, replaced by a warmth he hadn't expected. Are you sure? He asked. This could be your home, your people. My people are here, Neri interrupted, placing a six-fingered hand over her heart. And here. She reached out to touch Ta-Wu's arm lightly. The ship is my home now. With you. Ta-Wu smiled, relief washing over him. Then we'll need to expand the cockpit. Co-pilots need their own control station. Neri's markings glowed a bright, happy purple. Yes, and I have ideas for improving the navigation systems. The next morning, after gathering supplies and saying farewells to the colonists, they returned to the Serenity Dawn. The ship seemed different somehow, not just a means of escape anymore, but truly a home. As their ship lifted off, Neri sat beside him in the co-pilot's chair, no longer following behind, no longer bound by biological necessity to stay close. She was there by choice, plotting coordinates into the navigation system with confident movements. Together, they set a course toward the outer planets, where opportunities awaited for a skilled transport team with knowledge of both human and alien technologies. There would still be dangers ahead. The bounty might never be completely forgotten, but they would face them together, partners navigating the stars. As Ganymede shrank behind them, Ta-Wu glanced at Neri. Her markings glowed with a color he had never seen before, a deep, rich purple-blue that seemed to pulse in time with the ship's engines. New color, he commented. What does that one mean? Neri smiled, her black eyes reflecting the starlight. Home, she said simply. It means home.